The story continues. Someone from the audience stood up and declared that he would choose Zeke Draker as his opponent in the Pankritum, saying that he really had something to say to him. And Zeke recognized that it was Yakin Vard, another one of his cousins, and replied that that was fine, but fighting him alone would be too boring. So he ordered Liam Stone, Jockin's butler, to join the fight, saying that it would be fairer that way. Jockin asked if he was being insulted, and Zeke obligingly confirmed it, calling him an imbecile. And Jockin thought that now he was definitely going to kill Zeke. When the three of them arrived at the arena, the instructor warned Zeke not to do anything until he gave permission, and Zeke thought it was curious to see that boy there again, the future king of mercenaries, Liam Stone. In Zeke's past life, Liam had joined Yakin as a servant, but because he was from a very distant branch of the family, he was left out of his education and begged to be accepted into Valhalla's top academy, but ended up joining the knightly order of a small nation called Baronet, which later fell, and so Liam became a mercenary. With his vast experience on the battlefield, Liam eventually became a Red Knight, united the three largest mercenary groups, and became known as the King of Mercenaries. While the Empire hired the Stone mercenaries, Liam took part in the Continental Wars, and Zeke, along with the people of the North, faced Liam as an enemy, but thought that this time it would be different. When the fight began, Jockin launched a direct blow at Zeke, but was impressed when he saw that the punch was easily parried. Zeke told them both to attack at the same time, and Jockin wondered if he really thought he would fall for these tricks. But when he tried to kick, he had the blow blocked easily, stepped back in pain, and heard Zeke say that he should pay more attention before attacking. Jockin's leg was visibly wounded, and Zeke commented that he was too easily distracted, coming up with a critical hit. But the moment Jockin raised his guard, Zeke wondered if he wasn't too scared to realize the attack, because instead of punching, he kicked his already injured shin again. Taking advantage of this opening, Zeke punched Jockin straight in the chest, causing him to spit out a large amount of blood. Zeke declared that he had already said that Jockin alone wasn't enough, so Jockin shouted for Liam's help, saying that together they would finish the bastard off. Zeke wondered if Liam was also 12, as he looked much stronger and older, and when Liam prepared his attack, Zeke thought he wouldn't be able to block, so he decided to take the lead in the fight. He began to attack Liam's block with speed, activating his quick strike skill, hitting several parts of his opponent's body at once. This E-rank skill created a barrage of consecutive attacks against the enemy, and the audience was shocked by this, thinking that Zeke's performance was simply insane. Zeke thought that both the instructor and the audience must be confused and curious, but this technique was something he had learned in the North, and even though his young body couldn't take it yet, the biggest problem at the moment was Liam's monstrous physique, which didn't counterattack or dodge, just blocked everything with resistance. Zeke felt that his body was reaching its limit, but decided to test how powerful Liam's body was, so he went for a big final blow, only for Liam to dodge easily at the last second. Zeke thought that Liam couldn't even see the ether with his own eyes. He only had an insane sense, which was why Liam managed to grab Zeke's arm with ease and was already preparing to throw him, but Zeke managed to escape at the last moment and landed a knee to the back of Liam's head. He activated his instincts again to apply a countermaneuver, doing a leg lock around Liam's neck, and thought that it didn't matter how strong someone's body was. If there was no oxygen, there was no point. But even though he was almost suffocating, Liam still managed to fight back, repeatedly hitting Zeke hard enough to make him spit blood, and Zeke thought it would become a contest to see who could last the longest in that situation. After exchanging many blows, Liam began to lose consciousness, even showing extreme fury, and the audience watched with horrified expressions, while one of the instructors looked on. Finally, a body fell, revealing that it was Liam who had been knocked out, and someone in the audience, who seemed to have expected this outcome, commented that it would be an honor to defeat Zeke Draker. Returning to the dormitory, Decker commented that he had heard that Zeke had hurt himself badly and asked if he was all right, to which Zeke replied that he was now. Decker, however, asked to check his pulse, and Zeke understood that he actually wanted to check his aura to see if he had woken up. So Zeke held out his palm, and Decker thanked him, and used his own aura to do the analysis, and Zeke wondered if Decker was, in fact, a Blue Knight. Zeke thought that normally when checking someone's aura, you would touch the person's inner energy center, but Decker was infusing his own aura into his body to get a better feel, which would only be possible for someone of a high level. It was explained that not all knights are equal, as they are classified according to their martial skills and their aura manipulation. The White Knight was considered a novice, and most of the children in the cradle were at this level. The Yellow Knight represented the first level of awakened when the internal energy center was open. By freely controlling their aura, the person became a purple knight, able to imbue their sword with their own aura, and above that came the blue knight, who was able to form a blade entirely made of aura. Then there was the level of the red knights, who completely crossed the line and reached transcendence, like the legendary mercenary King Liam or Zeke himself in his past life. There were also the black knights, who were complete monsters, and only a few existed on the entire continent. Zeke wondered how someone as skilled as Decker had become his babysitter, but soon thought it didn't matter since Decker wouldn't be able to detect ether, something that only 2 people in the whole world could use. Even so, when Decker had finished checking his wrist, he asked if Zeke was hiding something, to which Zeke replied with another question, asking if he was hiding something too, and then laughed, saying he was joking. Decker asked why Zeke had changed so much recently, and Zeke replied that this question was wrong, because the right question would be why it had taken him so long to change, and he said that many things would change from now on, and everything would go to the right place. All Decker had to do was follow him. Decker replied that he understood his young master and said that he had already prepared the training room. Zeke thanked him, saying that Decker was great as always, and told him he could rest. He then thought that if Decker had been sent to keep an eye on him, he would need to keep him close, to prevent any information from leaking out. But the problem was knowing who had given that order, probably one of his brothers. When he got to the training room, he wondered if this was his personal space, and decided that the first thing he would do would be to check his system. Everything seemed normal, except for his quick strike skill, which was now at the proficient level, and Zeke thought that this was the only change for the time being. He began to wonder if the repeated use of a skill caused it to evolve, and thought that perhaps that was the case. He believed that skills were being activated naturally based on his actions, and perhaps if he learned something new during his training, a new skill might also emerge. He began to wonder what the difference was between a common skill and a class skill, since they seemed very similar, and there was also the factor of draconic skills that he could develop later on. Zeke knew that he needed points to unlock his abilities, but at the moment he had exactly 0 karma points, so he went to check how to get them, and discovered that he needed to kill monsters to do so. He thought there were several dungeons with monsters scattered around the continent, but to enter one of them, you had to be at least a purple knight, which he wasn't yet. Even so, what intrigued him most now was why he had returned to the past, and he thought it might have something to do with the ancient relic he had obtained in that moment before his death. After pondering it for a while, he decided that it didn't matter for the time being, because what he really needed to do right now was train to become stronger. With great effort, he picked up a sword, feeling his whole body tremble, and told himself that it didn't matter whether he used the system or the power inherited from the Drakers. He would find a way to strengthen himself. It was explained that in that world, there were 2 main types of power, the aura of knights and the mana of mages. Knights strengthened their bodies and weapons with aura, while mages manipulated mana through magic circles. These 2 powers were at opposite ends of the energy spectrum, which meant that someone who awakened one of them could not awaken the other. However, Zeke was unlucky enough not to awaken either of them. Because of this, he was abandoned by his home, and during his days wandering the streets, he met his master, who taught him many things, the most useful being healing, and the ether room. With ether, which was an energy created and developed by his master, Zeke managed to master it completely, and was now the only ether user in the world besides his own master. After 2 hours of training, he was completely exhausted, and his hands were bloody, but he activated his healing ability and quickly solved the problem. Zeke thought that this ability was extremely rare and that he had never heard of it until he met his master. He knew that if he used healing in front of certain people, he could be treated as an irregular, so he didn't use it during the battle against Liam. But as soon as he returned to his room, he needed to heal. Otherwise, he would face serious consequences. After recovering his body, Zeke said he would train some more, and at sunset, he commented to himself that it was time for dinner, wondering what he would say to Decker since he had practically destroyed the training room. A week later, in the cafeteria of the Cradle, some people commented on him, saying that he was completely different, perhaps even involved in black magic, and some even thanked him, saying that he represented the weak who finally had someone to look up to. At a nearby table, where several cadets were eating, one person was quietly listening to all these conversations. It was Reyna Tarun, and next to her was Leon, still all bruised up. Owen, sitting at the table, told Leon that he'd better eat even if he didn't have an appetite, as he'd need a lot of energy to recover, and Leon, irritated, asked if he was mocking him. Owen replied that it was just friendly advice, but commented that perhaps Leon's inferiority complex was really too great. Leon was furious, stood up abruptly, and even dropped a piece of meat on the floor, which made Reina visibly angry, and even Leon noticed the look on her face. The people at the table fell silent, and then asked what they were going to do now, since the main topic was still Zeke Draker. One of the people commented that Zeke may have been impressive in the pancratio, but he doubted very much that he would do well in fencing duels, since he could barely hold a sword. Leon agreed, saying that he was so weak that he had to have a custom sword made, as the basic ones were too heavy for him, and added that his victory at the pancratio must have been luck. But when he mentioned luck, Reina got up from the table and everyone fell silent. Leon was flustered by the look on her face, and Reina declared that if they really believed it was luck, then they didn't deserve to be part of House Draker. And that's the end of this chapter. If you enjoyed the recap, don't forget to like, comment which part hyped you the most, and subscribe for the next episode. See you in the next upload.